The frontier station of Orion's Reach floated in the quiet dark of space. It was small compared to the massive trade hubs closer to Earth, but for those who lived there it was home. The station was old, patched together with human ingenuity and stubbornness, much like the man who worked deep inside its mechanical heart, Elias Kane. Elias was a human engineer, tall and broad-shouldered with oil stains always clinging to his hands and shirt. He liked machines more than politics. The galaxy was full of empires, councils, and wars, but Elias believed he could avoid all of that if he just kept fixing things. He had grown up in frontier space far from Earth, and he learned early that survival meant knowing how to repair whatever kept you breathing. On this day, he was bent over a broken coolant pump, his toolkit spread out beside him, when a warning light blinked across his console. An incoming distress signal. He frowned, wiped his hands on a rag, and pulled the console closer. The signal was weak, flickering. He boosted the reception and the voice came through, sharp but strained. "This is Liara Vena, requesting immediate aid. Vessel disabled. Life support failing. Coordinates attached." Elias stared at the console. The name meant nothing to him, but the ship's registry made his blood run cold. It was Sarathari. The Sarathari Empire was old, proud, and dangerous. Humans had crossed paths with them only recently, and relations were tense. They saw humans as reckless death-worlders, too wild to be trusted. The Earth Council had warned every station, "Do not interfere with Sarathari affairs." Elias leaned back, chewing his lip. He knew the order. He knew the risk. But as the coordinates displayed, he saw how close the vessel was, barely an hour away in his shuttle. If he ignored it, whoever was aboard would die. He cursed under his breath. Damn politics. Within minutes, he had grabbed his toolkit, boarded his shuttle, and launched into the void. The ship came into view soon after. It was elegant, even crippled, its silver hull catching the faint light of a distant star. Smoke trailed from one engine, and emergency beacons pulsed weakly. Elias docked his shuttle and forced the hatch open with manual override. Inside, the air was thin, the lights flickering. He found her slumped near the controls, a tall figure with pale violet skin, silver hair flowing loosely, and eyes closed as if in sleep. "Hey," Elias shouted, rushing forward. He checked her vitals. Still alive. He dragged her to his shuttle, hooked her to spare oxygen, and watched as her chest rose and fell again. Slowly, her eyes fluttered open, brilliant green, sharp even through the haze of weakness. "You are human," she whispered. "Yeah," Elias said, tightening the straps around her oxygen mask. "Name's Elias, and you're lucky I came by." Her gaze hardened despite her exhaustion. "You should not be here. Helping me is forbidden." Elias gave her a crooked smile. "Guess I'm not good at following rules." When she recovered enough to sit, she introduced herself properly. "I am Liara Vena, daughter of High Counselor Talon Vena. But that title no longer matters." "I am in exile," Elias raised a brow. "Exile? What did you do, steal someone's crown?" Her lips curved in a faint smile, though sorrow lingered in her eyes. "I refused a marriage. The council wanted to bind me to another noble house, but I would not become a tool for power, so they sent assassins. I fled," Elias whistled low. "Sounds like a rough family dinner." Liara tilted her head at his tone, unused to human humor, but she did not argue. Instead, she looked around his shuttle, her gaze lingering on the patched panels and improvised repairs. Crude, yet effective. "Very human. Thanks," Elias said. He checked the monitors. "Your ship's a mess, but I can fix it. Won't be pretty, but it'll fly." She studied him for a long moment, as if weighing more than just his words. Finally, she nodded. "Then I trust you." Elias worked for hours, crawling through the Sarathari vessel with his toolkit. The design was strange, elegant, but overly complicated. Liara followed him, offering guidance when he asked, though she often seemed surprised at how quickly he adapted. "You learn fast," she remarked as he rerouted a power conduit with little more than scrap metal and stubbornness. "Humans don't get to be picky," Elias replied. "We fix things with what we have, or we don't survive." She was silent for a moment, then asked softly, "Is that why your kind are called Deathworlders?" Elias smirked. "That's one way to put it. We grew up on a tough planet. Poison storms, predators, volcanoes, earthquakes, you name it. We survived because we're too stubborn to quit." Liara considered this, her gaze thoughtful. "Perhaps that is why I feel Safe even now. Elias looked up at her, surprised. She quickly turned away, but her words stayed with him. Just as the repairs neared completion, alarms shrieked. Elias rushed to the console. Damn it, raiders. On the scanner, several ships were approaching fast. Scavengers, armed and desperate. They must have been the ones who damaged Liara's vessel earlier, and now they were back to finish the job. Liara's face tightened. They will not spare us. Elias grabbed the controls. Then let's not give them the chance. With her help, the ship roared to life, still shaky but functional. The raiders opened fire, blasts shaking the hull. Elias pushed the engines harder, weaving between asteroids. He cursed under his breath, hands flying across the controls while Liara manned the secondary cannons. For the first time, she saw him not just as an engineer, but as a fighter. He didn't hesitate, didn't freeze. He adapted, every move daring but precise, and when she fired the cannon striking one raider ship, she felt a thrill she had never known before. Together, they fought as if they had trained side by side for years. Finally, the raiders broke off, their damaged ships retreating into the void. Elias slumped in his seat, panting. Well, that was fun. Liara looked at him, eyes wide, a strange light shining within them. You risked your life. For me, Elias shrugged. Couldn't just leave you. That's not who I am. She lowered her gaze, her voice quiet. In my empire, loyalty is duty, but you give it freely. Elias met her eyes. Guess that's the difference between your people and mine. Hours later, when the ship was safe and orbiting a quiet moon, they shared a small meal from Elias's rations. Liara tasted the simple human food with curiosity, though she winced at the strong flavors. It is strange, she admitted. Yeah, Elias chuckled. We're strange people. For a moment, silence hung between them, but it was not heavy. It was calm, warm. Liara studied him as if seeing something she had never seen before. You are unlike anyone I have ever met, she whispered. Elias smiled softly. Same here. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly, silent witnesses to this unlikely meeting. Neither of them said it aloud, but both felt it. Something had begun between them, something dangerous, something forbidden, and neither wanted it to end. The quiet moon they had taken shelter on was cold and barren. From the surface, Elias Kane could see the curve of stars stretching into infinity. But his mind wasn't on the view. He sat cross-legged near a tool chest, his hands busy with a cracked circuit board. His human stubbornness wouldn't let him rest, not until Liara's ship was truly ready to fly again. Across the small cabin, Liara Vena watched him. The alien princess, once raised in palaces of polished stone and crystal skies, now sat on a crate in a patched-up freighter with a human engineer. She had been taught that humans were dangerous, unpredictable, even savage. Yet here was one, working for hours just to help her survive, never asking what he might gain in return. Her voice was soft when she spoke. You do not need to keep working without pause. You are exhausted. Elias glanced up, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. Machines don't care if I'm tired. They'll just break anyway. Better to stay ahead of the next failure. Liara tilted her head. His words were practical, yet beneath them she sensed something more. A refusal to quit, no matter the odds. Your people. You fight the universe itself, don't you? Elias chuckled. Yeah, Earth tried to kill us for thousands of years. Storms, beasts, sickness, you name it. If we didn't fight back, we wouldn't be here. Liara fell silent, her thoughts stirring. The Sarathari Empire prized order, obedience, and tradition. Yet this man embodied something different. An untamed will that could bend even the harshest world to his side. Shared stories later. Over a small fire fueled by emergency rations, Elias asked the question that had been sitting in his mind since they met. So, exile, huh? You really refused a marriage just like that? Liara's gaze dropped to the flames. It was more than refusal. The marriage would have bound my house to another, giving them power to control the council. I was expected to obey, to smile, and to surrender my life for politics. But I could not. Her jaw tightened. I wanted freedom. They saw it as treason. Elias poked at the fire with a broken rod. Freedom, huh? Guess we've got that in common. Her eyes lifted, sharp and searching. Do your people understand what it costs? Elias leaned back, resting on one arm. Oh, we know. A lot of blood's been spilled for it. But once you taste it, you never want chains again. Liara studied him as though she were seeing something rare. In my empire, freedom is spoken of as chaos. A dangerous idea that weakens unity. Yet sitting here with you, I wonder. Perhaps they fear it because they know it cannot be stopped. The firelight flickered on her silver hair. Elias felt something stir inside him. A respect that went beyond duty. A growing bond. Days passed as they repaired the ship. Liara learned to hold a wrench, and Elias taught her how to force a stubborn panel into place. In return, she taught him about Sarathari star maps, navigation traditions, and the songs sung by pilots when they launched into the void. One evening, as they worked side by side, their hands brushed. Both froze for a heartbeat. Liara looked away quickly, but Elias saw the faint shimmer of color on her cheeks. Neither spoke of it, but after that, silence between them was no longer awkward. It was full of meaning. Trouble arrives. It was during the third night that their fragile peace cracked. The ship's scanner lit up, detecting approaching vessels. Elias checked the readings, his stomach dropping. Mercs, not raiders this time. Hired guns. Liara's face hardened. The council has placed a bounty on me. Elias cursed under his breath. So anyone with a fast ship and a gun will be after you now. And you, she added quietly. You saved me. They will not forgive that. For a moment, Elias considered leaving, walking away before the fire grew too hot. But when he looked at Liara, saw the steel in her eyes despite the danger, his decision was clear. Then we fight together, he said. The first chase. The mercenaries came fast. Their ships were lean and vicious, armed with heavy cannons. Elias slammed the freighter's engines to maximum, weaving through asteroid fields. Liara manned the rear guns, her aim sharp despite the pressure. Explosions lit the dark as asteroids shattered. Elias's knuckles turned white on the controls, sweat running down his brow. He pushed the engines harder, using every trick he knew, slingshotting around rocks, diving into canyons, even cutting the power to drift unseen for precious seconds. Liara's voice rang from the gunnery seat. 2 destroyed. 1 crippled. But more kept coming. Elias gritted his teeth. We can't outgun them. Need a plan. Liara's eyes flicked across the nav screen. There is a gravity well ahead. A collapsed star remnant. Dangerous, but if we dive close enough, their heavier ships will not survive the pull. Elias barked a laugh. Risky, I like it. They plunged toward the gravity well. The ship groaned as space itself twisted around them. Elias fought the controls, his body straining against the pull. The merc ships followed, too close, too heavy. One by one, they were dragged into the crushing maw of the dead star. When the last mercenary vessel vanished in a burst of fire, Elias pulled them free with a roar of triumph. Liara's laughter, rich and wild, filled the cabin. For the first time, Elias saw her not as a runaway noble, but as a warrior. Confessions after the battle. They drifted in quiet space, the stars distant and calm once more. Elias patched up the ship while Liara sat near, watching him with unreadable eyes. Finally she spoke. You risked everything. Not for politics, not for reward. Why? Elias shrugged. Because it's the right thing. You needed help. I was there. Her voice dropped to a whisper. In my world, no one does something without reason, but you give loyalty without chains. That is dangerous. Elias looked up, meeting her gaze. Maybe, or maybe it's just human. Liara held his eyes for a long time. Then softly she said, I am glad you are human, Elias Kane. Whispers of rebellion words spread faster than they expected. A Sarathari princess traveling with a human engineer, defying the council's will. It was a tale too wild to stay hidden. Smugglers whispered of it. Refugees spoke of it with hope. Dissidents began to wonder if the Empire's chains could truly be broken. When they landed on a small trade moon for supplies, Elias noticed how people stared. Some with fear, some with awe. A grizzled alien trader leaned close and muttered, Careful, human. Standing beside her makes you more than an engineer. Makes you a symbol. Elias snorted. I'm no symbol. Just a guy fixing ships. But Liara's gaze was steady. Symbols are not chosen. They are born. That night, as they left the market, mercenaries ambushed them. Blaster fire tore through the alleys. Elias dragged Liara behind cover, his pulse hammering. Together, they fought their way out. Elias using scavenged tech as improvised weapons. Liara wielding a ceremonial blade with deadly grace. When they escaped aboard their ship, Liara stood in the cabin, chest rising and falling with fury. The council will never stop. They fear me. They fear us. And that fear will only grow. Elias tightened his grip on the controls. Then let's give them something real to fear. A turning point. The decision was made in that moment. No more running. No more hiding. They began reaching out to those who had whispered of rebellion. Outcasts, smugglers, miners who had lost families to the Empire's greed. Many were wary of a human. Many distrusted a princess. But when they saw Elias and Liara standing side by side, they began to believe. Elias spoke to them not as a leader, but as one of them. I'm no warrior. I'm an engineer. But I know this. Machines break when they're pushed too hard. And empires, they're just machines. We can break them too. Liara spoke as well, her voice carrying the weight of royalty and rebellion alike. I was born to serve a throne, but I choose now to serve freedom. Stand with us, and together we will write a new future. The room erupted in voices, fearful, hopeful, determined. The spark of rebellion had been lit. The realization later, when they were alone in the quiet of the ship, Elias sat staring at the stars. Liara stood beside him, her hand resting lightly on the back of his chair. You know this can't be undone, Elias said. We're not just fixing ships anymore. We're starting a war. Liara's voice was soft but firm. A war worth fighting. Their eyes met. For a long moment neither spoke. Then slowly Liara reached out, her fingers brushing against his. Elias took her hand without hesitation. The universe outside remained vast and cold, but inside that small cabin, something unbreakable had formed. They were no longer just a human engineer and an exiled alien princess. They were partners. And together, they were about to change the stars. The rebellion did not begin with grand speeches or mighty fleets. It began in whispers, in half-lit taverns, in hidden mines, in the cargo bays of drifting freighters. People spoke of a human who stood beside a Sarathari princess. A human who fought not for empire or power, but because he refused to abandon someone in need. And they spoke of the princess who dared defy her counsel, who chose freedom over a crown. Elias Kane never asked to become a symbol. He still saw himself as an engineer, a man who fixed broken things. But now he realized the galaxy itself was broken, and together with Liara Vena, he had taken the first steps toward repairing it. Gathering allies, their ship moved from system to system, never staying in one place too long. With every stop, more people joined them. Smugglers tired of paying bribes. Miners crushed by unfair taxes, exiles who had nothing left to lose. Elias fixed their ships, their weapons, even their air scrubbers. Liara gave them words of hope, speaking with the poise of her noble upbringing but with a fire that came from her heart. One night on a hidden asteroid base, Elias sat surrounded by scrap parts assembling a communications array. Around him, the voices of aliens from a dozen species filled the air, voices that had once belonged to strangers, but now called him brother. Liara approached, her steps light but steady. She looked at the makeshift gathering, then at Elias. Do you see it? She asked quietly. Elias glanced up, wiping grease from his hands. See what? She gestured at the crowd. The fire. It spreads with every word, every act. They believe now. Not only in me, but in you, Elias snorted. I'm just patching wires. Liara smiled faintly. To them you are patching more than that. You are fixing a broken future. Doubts and trust, not everyone trusted them. A meeting with a group of human traitors nearly ended in disaster. Why should we follow her? One captain sneered, pointing at Liara. She's a Sarathari. Her people enslaved my cousins on Karen Prime. And now she wants us to believe she's different? The room erupted with mutters. Elias stood, his voice cutting through. I don't ask you to trust her bloodline. I ask you to trust her choice. She walked away from all of it. She stood with me when she could have let me die. She's here, fighting beside us when she could have hidden in luxury. The captain glared, but Liara stepped forward, her voice clear and steady. I do not deny the pain my empire has caused, but I will spend my life undoing it. If you cannot forgive me, then let your hatred be for me alone, not for the dream of freedom we can build together. The room grew quiet. Slowly the captain nodded. Then prove it. And so they did, again and again. First strike. The rebellion's first real test came on the mining colony of Varys. The Sarathari Council had stationed soldiers there to squeeze resources for their fleets. The miners had begged for relief, but none came. Elias and Liara arrived in secret, their small band of fighters ready. Elias crouched in a dusty tunnel, adjusting a crude explosive made from scavenged fuel cells. Liara knelt beside him, her blade strapped to her side. "You are calm," she observed. Elias smirked. "Just another machine. Set the wires right, it works. Cross them wrong, we all go up in smoke." Liara raised an eyebrow. "That is supposed to comfort me?" He grinned. "You'll get used to it." The plan was simple. Disable the garrison's power grid, cut their communications, then strike before reinforcements arrived. When the moment came, the mines shook with explosions. Lights went dark across the colony. Rebels stormed the streets, their cries echoing against steel walls. Elias led a squad through the generator room, using tools as weapons when he ran out of ammo. Liara moved like a storm, her blade flashing, her voice carrying above the chaos as she rallied the fighters. By dawn, the Sarathari garrison had surrendered. The miners stood free for the first time in decades. Cheers filled the air, but Elias only wiped the sweat from his brow and muttered, "One machine down. A galaxy more to go." Liara's hand brushed his arm. "Do not downplay this, Elias." Today the fire became a blaze. Tensions within victory brought hope but also problems. The rebellion was no longer whispers. It was visible, loud, undeniable. That meant the Sarathari Council could no longer ignore it. In the rebel camps, arguments erupted. Some wanted to strike fast and burn every Imperial outpost. Others warned they would be crushed if they moved too quickly. One night, Elias found himself in the middle of a shouting match. "We cannot wait," a young smuggler cried. "The Council will gather fleets. We must strike now." "And lose everything?" a miner shouted back. "We need supplies, weapons, allies." Elias slammed his fist on the table. "Enough!" The room fell silent. Elias looked at each of them, his voice steady. Machines break when you push them too hard, too fast. But if you weaken the joints, if you stress the weak points, they fall apart on their own. That's how we fight the Empire. Not head-on, not yet. We hit where it hurts most, where they least expect it. And we live to fight again tomorrow. The rebels nodded, the anger cooling. Liara watched him with quiet pride. A battle in the void, the Council struck back soon after. A patrol fleet intercepted the rebels near the moon of Solvaris. The rebels had only a handful of ships patched together, their weapons barely functional. The Council's fleet outnumbered and outgunned them 3-1. On the bridge, Elias gripped the controls, his jaw tight. Liara stood beside him, her hand on the railing. "They will not show mercy," she said. Elias nodded. "Then neither will we." The battle was chaos. Sarathari cruisers fired volleys of plasma, tearing holes through rebel hulls. Elias wove their freighter between blasts, his hands moving faster than thought. Liara coordinated the rebels, her voice clear over comms, turning panic into unity. At one point, a cruiser cornered them, its guns locked on target. Elias swore. "We can't outrun it." Liara's eyes narrowed. "Then we break it," Elias grinned. "Now you sound human." They dove straight toward the cruiser, skimming so close the hulls almost touched. Elias released a cluster of improvised charges, scrap metal and fuel cells strapped together. The blast tore into the cruiser's engines, sending it spiraling into the void. The rebels roared in triumph. Against all odds, they had forced the fleet to retreat. Aftermath in the quiet after the battle, the rebels gathered. They looked to Elias and Liara not just as leaders, but as symbols. "You gave us hope," one miner said, tears in his eyes. "We thought we were alone, but now we believe." Elias shifted uncomfortably, scratching the back of his neck. "Don't thank me. Thank her." But Liara shook her head. "No, Elias, they thank us together." The crowd cheered, chanting their names. Elias felt the weight settle heavier on his shoulders. He had not asked for this, but he could not walk away now. A quiet moment. Later, when the noise faded, Elias and Liara sat together in the freighter's small cabin. The stars stretched endless outside the viewport. Elias leaned back, exhaustion in every line of his face. "We did it, somehow." Liara's voice was soft. "Because of you." He shook his head. "Because of us." Silence lingered, warm and steady. Then Liara reached out, her hand covering his. "Do you see now, Elias? The fire spreads, and it will not stop." He met her gaze, feeling the truth of her words. Something inside him, something he had kept guarded, finally gave way. "I see it," he whispered. And for the first time, He allowed himself to believe that they truly could change the stars. Delegates of hundreds of species sat in curved rows, their eyes fixed on the two figures who stood at the center. One was a human man, Elias Kane. The other was an alien princess, Liara of the Scifi. Both stood side by side, unshaken, even as the weight of the galaxy's judgment pressed down on them. For weeks, their story had spread across the stars like fire. The human who had saved an alien princess. The princess who had chosen to walk beside him, even against the traditions of her people. The pair who had stood together against pirates, warlords, and corruption. To many, they were a symbol of hope. To others, they were a threat. The council chancellor, an old being with skin like polished stone, spoke at last. His deep voice echoed across the chamber. Human Elias Kane. Princess Liara of Scifi. You stand accused of breaking the ancient order of our galaxy. You defied the will of the council, disrupted trade alliances, and brought dangerous truths to light. Do you have anything to say before judgment is passed? Elias looked around the chamber. He saw rows of faces, scaled, feathered, furred, and strange. Many looked curious. Some looked angry. A few looked quietly hopeful. He took Liara's hand. Her silver eyes, calm and steady, gave him strength. Yes, Elias said. His voice carried strong and steady. I have something to say. This order you speak of, this galaxy you claim to guide, it is broken. For too long, the council has ruled with fear and silence. For too long, species have bowed to ancient laws that keep them divided. But unity does not come from fear. It comes from trust. From standing beside each other. Murmurs swept the chamber. Some laughed. Some hissed. Some nodded. Elias raised his voice louder. I am human. Liara is Scifi. We come from different worlds, different stars, different blood, and yet we chose to walk together. We chose to fight together. And together we saved lives that your laws would have left to die. If that is a crime, then I will stand guilty. But know this, change has already begun. You can no longer stop it. Liara stepped forward. Her voice was soft but clear. My people taught me that to love beyond one's own kind is to betray one's blood. But I have learned that love is not betrayal. It is courage. Elias showed me that, and now I see what the council fears. Not us, not even humanity. You fear what we represent, the end of walls, the end of divisions, the end of your control. That time has come. The council chamber erupted. Some shouted in rage. Some cried out in agreement. For a moment, chaos filled the hall. But through it all, Elias and Liara stood, hands joined, unyielding. That night, they were placed under guard, awaiting the council's final decision. The guards, an insectoid pair, kept silent as they escorted them to their chamber. Elias sat on the edge of the simple bed, sighing. Do you think they'll execute us? He asked. Liara sat beside him, her hand on his. Perhaps, but even if they do, the fire has already spread. The people have heard us. They will not forget. He looked at her, amazed. Even in the face of death, she carried such calm strength. He thought of all they had endured, the crash, the battles, the betrayals. He thought of the moment he first saw her trapped in a cage, defiant even then. And now she was more than just a princess. She was his partner, his equal, his heart. No matter what happens, Elias said, I'm glad it was you, that I stood with you. Liara leaned her head against his shoulder. And I with you. Whatever comes, we face it together. Morning came. The guards returned. The council has reached its decision, one said in a cold, metallic voice. They were led back into the great hall. The chamber was packed again, filled with delegates and witnesses from across the galaxy. The chancellor stood tall. His expression was unreadable. Elias Kane, Princess Liara. After long debate, the council declares. He paused and the chamber held its breath. That you are exiled from all council worlds. You are forbidden from holding power or title. You are denied recognition within this order, but you are not sentenced to death. Your voices, however, will never be silenced here again. Gasps filled the room. Some delegates looked furious. Others looked relieved. Elias and Liara exchanged a glance. Exile. It was punishment, yes, but also freedom. Then something unexpected happened. One by one, several delegates stood. A tall, furred warrior from the Veyran worlds. My people will not obey this exile. You saved my kin from the raiders. You will always have a home with us. A crystalline ambassador shimmered. Your words broke chains on my world. We too will honor you. Others rose. Not all, but enough to shift the balance. enough to show that Elias and Liara's stand had planted seeds everywhere. The Chancellor struck his staff against the floor. Enough, the judgment stands. Exile remains, but history will remember this day. They left the Council world soon after, aboard the patched starship that had carried them through so many trials. As the engines roared to life, Elias looked out at the stars. So, he said with a grin, where do we go now? We've been banned from half the galaxy. Liara smiled faintly, her eyes reflecting the endless night. Then we go to the other half. The free half. The stars are wide, Elias. Wider than even the Council dares to admit. They traveled for months. Wherever they went, they found people who had heard their story. On backwater colonies, miners spoke of the human and the Scifi, who defied the Council. On trade stations, children played games pretending to be them, fighting against corrupt lords. In hidden resistance cells, their names were whispered like sparks of hope. They had become more than lovers, more than rebels. They had become a legend. But legends attract enemies. One night, as their ship drifted near the nebula fields, an armada appeared. Dozens of warships, banners of the Council fluttering across their hulls. A final warning, the Chancellor's voice came across the comms. Elias Kane, Liara of Sarathi, you were given exile, yet you spread defiance. Surrender now or be destroyed. Elias glanced at Liara. They're scared. Liara nodded. Yes, because they know the galaxy listens to us more than to them. Elias opened the comms. His voice rang with iron. You can kill us. You can burn our ship. But you cannot stop what has begun. You fear change, but change is already here. We are not alone. The people have chosen. As if on cue, dozens of new signals lit the void. Ships emerged from hyperspace. Not Council ships, but those of free worlds, independent fleets, smugglers, even pirates, who had been touched by Elias and Liara's deeds. They formed a wall between the Council armada and the small ship of the human and his lover. The Chancellor's voice faltered. This is rebellion. Liara's voice, calm and clear, answered. No, this is unity. The Council ships hesitated. Their commanders knew, if they fired, they would start a war they could not win. The armada held, silent and powerless. That night, under the glow of distant stars, Elias and Liara stood together on the deck of their ship. We didn't just survive, Elias said quietly. We changed something. Liara took his hand. We did. And the galaxy will never be the same. Together they looked out at the endless sea of stars. No longer enemies. No longer prisoners of tradition. No longer exiles, they were free. And in their freedom, the galaxy found hope.